surprise to the extreme upside in New Hampshire. And we also think we can surprise to the supreme upside in Nevada, where I just was. There's a lot of enthusiasm for the campaign in Nevada. And there's a really great sync. Do you all know that Nevada is #1 in the country for the proportion of jobs that are subject to automation? Yes. Yeah, so you go there and you talk about technology trends and the rest of it, they're like, oh man. Like MGM just fired hundreds of people and brought in robot bartenders. Turns out the tourists prefer the robot bartenders. And the robot bartender will pay for itself over a particular, every business person here knows. Like the robot bartender costs about $240,000. So you do the math on that and you're like, okay, I'll get my money back over like a 5-year period, and that's a win. So Nevada is going to be great for us. New Hampshire is going to be great for us. And the way that South Carolina works is South Carolina is kind of like a lagging indicator, because South Carolina voters actually aren't as politically focused as the other early states. They tend to go where the race is going. And as one example of this, most prominent, was that Hillary Clinton was way outperforming Barack Obama in South Carolina before Barack Obama won some of these earlier states, and then all of a sudden South Carolina looked up and was like, we can choose that guy. That way. So the plan for us is to outperform in all 3 of the first 3 states, but the bar in Iowa is going to be a different bar. But we think we can compete at the very, very highest levels in New Hampshire and Nevada, and that what the polls show really understates our strength, according to the numbers we're seeing. Nevada in particular is very, very difficult to poll. If you look at it, like they don't even try. Very, very few polls come out in Nevada. So it's going to be sort of a black box going into this. This is all to give you a sense of the mechanics, because we are playing to win. And this field is still very, very fragmented. I'll give you an example from our not so distant past. John Kerry was polling at about 4% at the end of 2003, and then he wound up winning in 2004. The vast majority of voters are like many of your friends, where they're not actually focused on this race right now. Something like 75% of even the primary voters in the early states say they do not know who they're going to support yet. So this race is right there for us. Some of you are here because you think, hey, I like this guy, I love Katie. It's like we're going to come support him. We can win this thing. We can win. If you have any doubt in your mind, like please do get in touch with the team. We can walk you through some of these numbers we're looking at, but we can win. This field is very fragmented, and there's not any one front runner that's going to take the field. So many voters are just looking around for an option. What's the #1 criteria for Democratic primary voters in the nominee?
Beat Trump.
Beat Donald Trump. And there are a lot of things coming out that are showing that I have higher crossover appeal than any of the other candidates, and will become one of the strongest candidates to beat Donald Trump in 2020. When Democrats figure out that the Asian guy who wants to give everyone money is actually like one of the strongest candidates to beat Donald Trump, and you're going to see the poll numbers rise. Mainstream press is catching up. But we could not do it without all of your help. You all are the early adopters, the champions. Carly's here because Carly's the person that if you'd like to host or co-host an event for the campaign, Carly will ask you, essentially, if you ask her to ask you.
That's true.
So I'm going to give the mic to Carly for just a second. You can introduce yourself, and then I'll give some closing remarks, and then we'll take some pictures. Here we go, Carly.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you. So first of all, thank you all so much for being here. I've communicated with some number of you over email, probably all of you over email at some point or another. We're all here obviously right now because we believe in the importance of this message, and in many ways the importance of this messenger himself up there on that stage. And so obviously the team is thinking all the time about how we can make sure that we are in this race and growing in this race. And this quarter is perhaps the most important quarter we've had so far. This is the last full quarter we're going to have before voting begins. So what we raise in the next 3 months is going to be really indicative of what we can do in terms of get out the vote, expanding our field program, going up on TV, And a lot of this is starting to happen in the coming couple of weeks. So October, even within this very important quarter, October is a very important month, and these next 5 days are critical. So it's certainly why we are so appreciative of the fact that you all are here with us today and have donated and have put up the money to be here. But of course, I'm here to ask you, if you can do more, please do more. We are going to have a text that y'all will be receiving here in probably 30 minutes or an hour.
Yeah.
It has a link. You can go to it. You can give another $10, another $100, $1,000,
Yeah.
whatever you can do. But we have some lofty goals here over the next 5 days. It's going to be what enables us to get our word out further and wider in early states, in Iowa, in New Hampshire, especially to older voters who predominate in Iowa, in New Hampshire. So we're pushing here hard on a number of fronts, and your all's help and donations are what make it possible. So, and yes, if you are interested in hosting, interested in getting involved in any way, please let me know. I'll be hanging around for a little while longer. We also have our volunteers. You can pass your name along to any of them. They'll get it to me as well. But thank you so much for being here. I'll have Andrew, maybe take a couple of questions or some closing remarks, and then we'll line y'all up for selfies and pictures, and we'll get the line moving along here. But thank you.
Woo. Max out.
Max out.
Max out.
Max out. Yeah.
Yes, max out.
Yeah, please do max out.
Yes, max out.
2,800. Then you can say I did everything I could to help that man.
Yes.
So I've been running now for almost, 2 years. It was not even a joke because it's like 18 months ago. No one was paying attention to this race, and it felt quite solitary and isolating. But now when we go around the country, rallies of thousands of people, I've met at this point tens of thousands of Americans, at least in some capacity, and this campaign contains a vision for a brighter future for so many of us, so many of them. We have to show our fellow Americans what is still possible. We have to restore a sense of optimism and possibility in this country, and a degree of unity. Because there are some of the other candidates in the field, the fact is if they do win, we're in for another 4 years of gridlock and polarization, and I believe that I can help change that. I can help the country see that it's not left, it's not right, it is forward! And that is where we can take the country together in 2020. Thank you so much, thank you. Love you all, and I'd love to take some questions. I'm going to have Carly run you the mic if you got a question.
Henry?
Henry.
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
That's my favorite t-shirt that Henry has on. Evelyn wears that t-shirt around the house to show the boys what I looked like. And then they're very skeptical. They're like, that's not Dad. Oh, look at this.
Oh, nice.
And I was upset too because I put it in the dryer. I'm like, oh, it's all wrinkled now, but it makes it look more vintage. So I do want to bring up I've been following you since the Sam Harris podcast last year, and at first I was skeptical. I was like, man, UBI, that's a little crazy, and I'm not gonna lie, I grew up having a lot of self-doubt being an Asian American, especially an Asian American man. I thought this Andrew guy seems good, he's genuine, but I don't think he's gonna make it. But as I watched him and watched him grow, I quickly became a heavy believer. And just when I first started talking about Andrew Yang, people would say, "Who's this guy? Who's this guy?" But now as I start talking to people about Andrew, especially in Uber drivers, they start going, "Yeah, I've heard," especially after the fourth debate, where he had an incredible performance, by the way. So I mentioned that. Now, people starting to realize, this guy, he's a serious contender now. We watched him grow, and it's been a pleasure watching you grow. Check out his hair game in this book, and check out now. Oh man, it's great. So I do have a question about democracy dollars. How would you fund the democracy dollars?
So for those of you who aren't familiar, Democracy Dollars is a plan I propose to give every American adult 100 democracy dollars that you can give to any candidates or campaigns every year. It's use it or lose it, so if you don't use it, they just disappear and then you get another 100 the next year. And the reason for this is that right now our government has been overrun by lobbyists and corporate special interests, and almost no matter what rules you put in place, the money will find its way back in. It's like life in Jurassic Park. You know, it's like the money will find a way. And so the best counter to me is to put the money back into people's hands. And the amount of money we're talking about, the democracy dollars, in the scheme of things, is actually not that huge. Like the return on lobbyist investment, to the extent you can consider lobbying an investment, one study showed that lobbying had a return of 22,000%. That's something ridiculous. So lobbying cash is not going to go away. In a way, what we have to do is we have to give the people our own means of lobbying. And as someone running for president, I can say this sort of gathering is an exception, where most of the time, if you have the people on one side, you have the money on the other. You know what I mean? And as a legislator, you end up being responsive to the money because it's easier to measure, the food is better, like it's like events are like, you know, fancier. And so you end up veering towards the money and away from the people. And if you actually can unify the people and the money, where if I get 10,000 Americans behind me, it's like $100, and then the lobbyist comes with 100,000, you'd be like, I don't care about your 100,000. Like, I'm focused on the people. In the scheme of a functional government, this investment is not going to be very significant, particularly because it's going to take the form of essentially vouchers, where like you have a code and then you like issue it to a campaign, the campaign then redeems it with the government, and then we just like send them cash. So the cost, if you had to put a number on it, you know, it's in the low billions, which for a functional government is actually like a very, very reasonable investment. This is actually now the second most popular plan in my campaign after the freedom dividend is democracy dollars. And when I said democracy dollars at one of the debates, I saw Al Sharpton like look up and be like get up and start clapping and whatnot. I was like, oh, Al heard me. Debates, so much fun. I mean, Katie, you were at the Detroit debate. Did you come to one after that too? Houston, as well. Are you coming to Atlanta? Good question. Depends upon how much money your friends contribute today. I'm kidding. That's not the way we roll.
Was that really true? I was kidding.
Question? Yeah, do you have a... Oh, wait.
Can I have the next?
Want to pass it over to Cyrus?
Yeah, Cyrus. Yes.
Go ahead, Cyrus, go.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Cyrus Nimani, and I worked on a televised poker show for 2 years. Yeah, and we recently had a contest where we raised 1 yang for the campaign.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so you came out in support of legalizing online poker yesterday, and which left the U.S. market in large part because of regulations on transferring money online. So what would online poker look like under a Yang presidency?
So I was in Las Vegas yesterday campaigning, and a professional poker player, maybe someone similar to you, Cyrus, actually came up and said, hey, these rules have gotten completely bizarre. It's forced us all to go offshore. It was put in place by like this person suggested that it was protecting certain casinos in certain states that then thought they'd get more business. So to me, it reminded me a little bit of the marijuana laws in the country. Where you have this hodgepodge, like state by state, and it's legal some places and not other places, which ends up creating, in some ways, like the worst of all worlds. And so, to me, we need to clarify the rules, and the best way to clarify them, in my mind, would be to make online poker legal nationwide, and then you'd have some mechanism also to fund gambling addiction programs and things that you could see like there might be some negative effects from legalization. Though this is an example of what I said before, where like there's a law in the books, but we all know to play online. You're like laughing. It's like if I was in a state where it wasn't legal, like you would just find a way to you just go offshore, and then who loses? The player, American businesses, and some of these offshore businesses are apparently really shady, and there's no legal recourse if you end up having a problem. So I would love to talk to you, Cyrus, about whether there are specific issues within the legalization of online poker nationwide. But it sounds like things were better before 8 years ago, it was a suggestion. And so we can return to something close to that and then improve on that. That would be my goal.
Unfortunately, I'm going to just have to do one more question.
Let's find a woman, too. We just have two dudes.
I'm sorry, dude. Here. Over there.
Online
Lady
folks up. Look at your save.
If I played online, it would not be great. My poker skills are not as good as some people would think.
It's time
Audrey!
I do understand the math behind poker.
A lot of math.
Audrey.
So I'm Audrey, I'm 11, and I had a question to ask you. So I'm part of my 6th grade debate team, and I know you do debate. And so last weekend we had a tournament, and our topic was, are rideshare drivers contractors or employees? I want to know what your answer to that is.
Wow, that's a great question. Well, when I ran a business, we had a similar issue with our instructors. Like, are your instructors contractors or employees? And in our case, there were a couple of variables that went in. One, which we all know, is just the number of hours a week you spend doing it. And if you spend over a certain threshold, then you crossed into a zone where at least legally there's an argument that you should be a full-time employee. So that's something I would apply to rideshare drivers. If someone's just occasionally doing a rideshare, on like on, let's say, some like weekend day, then that's probably not a job. If they're doing it 40 plus hours a week and the company knows that, then that's much closer to a job, and then you should actually have some responsibilities. As someone who's run a business, I know that the incentives are very, very clear to try and have someone not be a full-time employee, because then you have this whole suite of legal and regulatory obligations, and there's almost no sane business that wants those obligations and costs. And so the very clear economic incentive is for the rideshare businesses to be like, you are all contractors. It's not just rideshare companies, it's many companies in many industries. And to me, the tough part, Audrey, is that we're looking up and saying this is fundamentally unjust, which it is unjust, because we have this winner-take-all economy, and these people are just like grinding in these subsistence roles. But then we're actually beating up the businesses for the set of incentives that we've set up. And that's actually not right either. To me, the goal should be to make it so that we have basic benefits that are essentially independent of your job, and not just beat up the businesses and say you need to provide better healthcare and other provisions. We have to do that for everyone, because 94% of the new jobs created in the US now are temp, gig, or contract jobs. And there's an economic term called job lock that we've all seen in our lives, which is that people are stuck in jobs because of healthcare, insurance, and other benefits. It's bad for our economy, it's bad for business formation, it's bad for dynamism. So, long-winded answer, Audrey, is that to me, some of the rideshare drivers should be categorized as employees, but there's a bigger issue, which is that we need to actually have decent benefits that are independent of your employment status at any moment in time, given the nature of the economy. It's a great question, though, Audrey. And keep on debating; it can take you very far.
All right, so let's do this. Lena, right? We'll do one question with Lena, but before we get to Lena's question, we're gonna form a line to come meet Andrew, and it's gonna start this way. So line's gonna snake this way, and then after you get your picture, you're gonna leave out this way.
So I have a book, I'll sign it too.
Yeah.
A bunch of books.
If I can just get Ethan and Jeremy and Co to help me run the line here, and then we'll have Lena ask her question if folks are lining up.
Yeah,
Hey.
So I just had a question about, because you are not an insider, so I went to Exeter 95, so I crossed paths with you. But you were older, you look different now. Do it in the mic so the crew can hear the question and answer.
So my question is, because you are an outsider politically, my concern is not necessarily about policy. I know that you're into knowledge goodness, you're going to be fine policy-wise, but all the damage the Trump administration has done to the infrastructure and the bureaucracies, what is your plan to reinstate? Because we have our clients through the federal government, and there's been so many issues that they're telling us, like contracts are held up, staffing just gone and not filled. So what's the plan to get the government sort of functioning again?
So Lee and I went to high school together. She went to Exeter. She says I look different now. Do you remember me from that photo on Henry Stairs? So her question's about rebuilding government, and I'm not frankly, some idiot who's like, we're gonna come in and like do everything different. Like, it was if you remember Obama's first term, he chose Joe Biden in part because he needed a partner that had a lot of relationships on Capitol Hill to get things done. And I would want to build the same kind of team where you need a ton of insiders to complement outsiders. And I'm obviously something of an outsider, so you would need people that know what the issues are in Capitol Hill, what the right relationships are. And I know enough to know that there's like a vast bureaucracy that's been there for decades, and that there's some real operational issues, in part because a lot of those people are reaching retirement age. And the age of our federal government's actually advancing in a way that's not ideal. So one of the things I think I can do is I think I can get some younger people interested in government service, which is a long-term fix. And then the short-term fix is making sure we have any experienced hands around the administration. I am not the guy who's gonna like come in and try and like do some sort of like bizarre, like, we're gonna Silicon Valley this place. Like, that would be asinine. It would be a total flop and a failure. I would get nothing done. I'm savvier than that, let's put it that way.
All right.
You guys lined up very quickly and easily, so thank you. I've been to events where it's not gone this smoothly. So let's do this. Can we get music kicked up again? Oh, and of course, and I should say, let's just give one more round of applause for Rick and Katie and the whole
Yay!
so much.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. They can
catch. They own this place.
Awesome, and then we'll move on through here. Have your cameras ready so you can take the picture and get back to you smoothly. Should I count down the band? 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Proud of
Oh, thank you.